Yes, now we can see.
Yes, we
Okay.
can see it.
Okay. So, okay, we're going to start. So, um, good morning, everyone. So our group is composed by Martín Alvarado, Catalina Olivares, and Mauricio Reyes, who is speaking. So our book report is about The Great Gatsby. Okay. So, first of all, before starting, we wanted to ask a little question for the audience, and is the following: have you ever read or watched The Great Gatsby? Is
Yes.
there
I,
any person? Yes?
Barbara, I read the book and I watched the movie as well. And
Okay.
they both are very similar. Actually, the movie is exactly like the book.
Okay. And can you like describe in a few words like what it is about, maybe?
Uh, Not really. I mean, it's difficult.
Okay. But do you remember like anything or that caught your attention, maybe?
To be honest, I didn't like the book. That's the reason why I watched the movie. So I don't really have an insight about what the book is about. But I remember that I really liked the way how Gatsby fell in love with the Daisy. I remember that. And how she betrayed him at the end.
Okay.
Because she went back with her husband.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Alvara. Is there any other person who would like to share, maybe?
Me. Um, I haven't read the book, but I have watched the two movies that have been made. Personally, I think the old one it's more related to the story because the other one with DiCaprio it's like a modern thing. But what I really like from this story is the mysterious of this character of Gatsby, and just that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Javiera. So, any other person? Okay. So, as an introduction, now Martin is going to talk a little bit about the socio-cultural context of this piece of literature, and also a little bit about the author. So, Martin, you can start.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Mauricio said, I'm going to contextualize when and where this novel was written. Okay. To start, I think there may be something wrong with the transmission because I don't see the correct slide. But well, first I wanna very briefly describe the main points of modernism. Is the not only literary but a social movement and philosophical movement that in which The Great Gatsby was written. So the main characteristics of this movement is that it's mainly a reactive movement in the sense that it was a reaction to industrialization, urbanization, and the advancements of technologies. Um, it was kind of we as a society we were moving on from a theocentric view to a more anthropocentric view, and in this sense, it sprouts from the need to innovate and to answer new questions on societal needs. Modernism is based on John Locke's empiricism. This means it is an Aristotelian movement. I don't know if you remember, but Aristotle said that the human mind was a kind of blank slate which may be filled with content. Well, modernism says that reality is something that is absolute and and you can't change reality, so you have to face it, right? So in this sense, it's based in John Locke's empiricism. Also, it was greatly influenced by Sigmund Freud and Nietzsche. As you know, Nietzsche denies the existence of God and says that humanity is driven by its psychological needs mainly. Modernism also includes some or gives birth to many genres such as expressionism, symbolism, surrealism, and theater of the absurd. Also, there are some narrative resources or devices that are very modern, to say in a sense. For example, the excessive use of imagery, symbolism, contrast, irony, and nonlinear narratives are very common in modernism. As you can see here in the picture, you have this meme I like a lot about conflict in literature. You can see the modern literature in the center. As you can see, the main conflicts are man versus society, man versus self, and man versus the absence of God. Okay, can you please pass the slide? I don't know what happened with the transmission, but I think there is a slight delay. Now I'm going to
Martin,
talk. Yes.
sorry. We're going to change, so Catalina is going to show the screen.
Oh,
Okay.
right. Right. Well, as I was saying, now I am going to briefly describe the life of the author in order for you to get to know a little bit of the context in which it was written. The Great Gatsby was written. Okay, so The Great Gatsby was written by Francis Scott Fitzgerald, who was an American novelist. He was born in 1896, if I am correct, in Minnesota, but he was raised in New York. He was a son of Irish immigrants, and his family has a very nice, very not nice, it's a very rich history, political history. I'm not going to enter into the details because of the time, but during his early years, he, as I said, he was raised in New York. He went to a university. This is like in the start of the 20th century. As you know, going to the university was kind of a class privilege. So this means that Scott Fitzgerald, even though he was not rich, he had the opportunity to go to university. He went to Princeton, but he dropped out of Princeton because he had an affair with a, um, a girl, a lady from the so from an upper social class. She was a socialite, daughter of a rich family who studied also in Princeton. So he had a kind of a relationship with this lady. Her name was Ginevra, Ginevra King. And it is said that Ginevra is one of the inspirations for Daisy, a character that is part of the Great Gatsby. And many of Fitzgerald's female characters were based on Ginevra or Zelda, whom I will speak later. Okay. Um, well, he dropped the university in order to pursue his dream of becoming a novelist. And he joined the army because, of course, he was not working and he needs some kind of income. And while he was stationed near Alabama in Montgomery, he met Zelda Sayre, who is the one who also he was a socialite lady, so a member of the upper class, and they fell in love and they had a relationship and they got engaged. But she refused to get married with him if he couldn't give her the life she deserved. Right? She was accustomed to a very specific type of life, and of course Scott Fitzgerald couldn't provide for her in the sense that she wanted. So um, around 1918 to 1920, after the First War, you know, Scott Fitzgerald had um, was very successful in the publication of his novel that was called This Side of Paradise. Okay, so this is when his career took off, and he, I mean, they got married with Zelda, and we passed to what is known as the just age. Can you please pass the slide? I want to clarify something before. Please. Okay. What is the just age? The just age is a term that it was coined by Scott Fitzgerald, and it describes a period from 1920 to 1933, if I'm correct, in which the massification of the radio as a device, a home device, helped helped the spreading of the jazz and swing music, which became so popular in the Americas, and which sprouted so many genres like rock, blues, etc. Okay, so thanks to the massification of the radio, this cultural reinvention was possible. Also, it overlapped with a period known as the Prohibition era, in which after the First War, the U.S. government didn't allow the commercialization or spreading of uh, alcohol. So, um, if you were an American in those ages, those years, you couldn't drink unless you were part of the organized crime and the kind of bohemian scenery that or scene that they created, because as it is widely known, there was a very famous crime organization that took took care of the casinos and the alcoholic beverages market, and also yes, thanks to the organized crime scene, the Jazz Age came to fruition. And also there is a very important role of women during this period, because they earned the right to vote and to become part of the workforce during those years. So they previously they were just like an adornment or something, like furniture in their homes, and suddenly they had I'm sorry for the harsh vocabulary I'm using, but it was like that in those years. After those years, they could vote and become part of the workforce and study in the university and so on and so forth. So can you please go back to the previous slide and to very quickly summarize the final years? Well, after this commercial success that it was his novel This Side of Paradise, they moved to Europe, to Paris, if I'm not mistaken. During their stay in Paris, Scott Fitzgerald writes the Great Gatsby. Okay, but it wasn't a commercial success because remember we are in the 1920s. The Jazz Age is an age of excess and abundance before the Great Depression or the Great Recess, in which was a very important economical recess, or well, the event where all economic went to. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. The thing is that The Great Gatsby was not commercially successful because of this recession. So the career of Scott Fitzgerald started to decline. Also, his wife was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and Fitzgerald was an alcoholic. So she had to get hospitalized. Okay, she was hospitalized, and Francis was depressed, and drinking heavily, so he had many heart attacks and strokes and very a lot of health problems derived from alcoholism. And when he finally died on 1940, right? Apart from his wife, which was hospitalized. And well, of course, he died. He wasn't like rich when he died because he didn't have much success. And also, well, he was widely recognized after his death. Okay, I tried to be very, very brief, but there are a lot of facts that I'm leaving behind. So, and now Catalina can talk about the novel itself. Okay, so go on. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Um, I'm gonna talk about the book. Yeah, it had a lot of adaptations actually. He went to the ballet, to opera, radio. Actually, it caught my attention that it was taken again in the literature. It has a sequel, like what happened with Daisy after the other story. I mean the main story, and there is an alternative story considering Gatsby as a woman. Okay, and the other thing that caught my attention was the computer games. That was it's kind of a hidden object scenes that you have to find, and of course the films that I the one that I like the most is the one from Baz Luhrmann in 2013. I think that maybe you could have watched it or something. I think that you mentioned that before. Um, it's a really good adaptation. I read the book and I compared it with the movie, and it was really the director tried to catch all the aspects of the book in the movie. So completely recommendable. Well, the setting, the story happens in Long Island. Yeah, this is an actual place in the United States. Yeah, but these two parts of the land are called East Egg and West Egg. Yeah, where people that had the old money, I mean the families that were born wealthy, they were born in and they lived in East Egg. Yeah, West Egg was the new money, the people that become rich with time. And then we have the Valley of Ashes in here, that is like it is described in the book as grotesque. Actually, it low and middle class people lived in that place, and also there are some scenes in the city, yeah, in Manhattan. Here we have some pictures of the movie that I found really that portrayed what the author wanted to say about the scenarios. For instance, the East and West Egg, and then the Valley of Ashes and the city. Yeah, to start with the plot, I wanted to mention this quote because I found it important to understand the rest of the book. That Nick Carraway, the narrator, says that remembered an advice that his father gave him when he was young. It says, whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he tells him, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. So after this, we should consider Nick's writings as not judgmental, but we will talk about that later. I think it's important to mention. Yeah, in the exposition, Nick Nick, yeah, this man meets her cousin, her husband, and a friend in the Buchanan's house. Yeah, this is the Buchanan house. They are very wealthy, and they just had they just chill out. Then he goes to the city with Tom and realizes he has an affair with Myrtle. She's Myrtle. That live in the Valley of Ashes with her husband. Um, After that scene, he met Gatsby at his house at a party that he was invited. I mean, he was the only one who was actually invited by Gatsby. Yeah. Then in the complication, Nick finds out that Gatsby was in love with Daisy, his cousin. So he tried to help him and arrange a date with them. Yeah, he make it possible that they finally meet again because they met before in the story. They met when they were younger. They went yeah, and Daisy falls again for Gatsby, and they started a relationship that afterwards was discovered by Tom. In the climax, Tom, as I said before, Tom realizes at a dinner party that Daisy and Gatsby had an affair. They go to the city. I don't know why they decided to go to the city to continue the party in another room. And there the situation turns a bit dark when when Tom reveals the criminal business that Gatsby made to obtain his money. And after that, they, in the way back to their houses, they had an accident in the car, and that actually Daisy was driving to and Daisy was driving because she was nervous, and she finally hit and killed Myrtle, Tom's Tom's mistress. The denouement, Nick discovers that Daisy was the one that drove the car, and but the Gatsby still could take the responsibility. But in the next day, George appears and kills Gatsby by shooting him, and afterward he killed himself. For the resolution, at Gatsby's funeral were just Nick, Jay's father, that appears in the last pages, and but there were no more people because all the people were interested in his money and not he and not Gatsby himself. After that, the Buchanan's family leave the town, and like months after that, Nick and Tom meet in the street, and Tom reveals that he was responsible for Gatsby's death because he told George that he had an affair with Mitchell. Yeah, the characters, as I was mentioning, Jay Gatsby was a wealthy man that that gave famous parties every Saturday night. He had humble roots because he came from a poor family, but he was ambitious and he wanted to improve his situation. and finally got it right. He made billionaire because of criminal activity, but he did it everything because of Daisy, because he wanted to get Daisy's heart. Daisy Buchanan was a beautiful woman that was presented as sad and lovely, innocent, but she was kind of hypocritical and cynical. She she cared about the money more than what people had, you know. In certain ways, she was extremely self-centered, and that's how represented the all the money, the people that had the money. And Tom Buchanan was described as arrogant, dominant, as a bully. He had no moral qualms. Actually, he was racist and sexist um, in the story. Okay, and well, that's basically these characters. The following ones are Nick Carraway. That was, I'm sorry, Nick Carraway was the narrator of the story, and Jordan Baker was a friend of Tom the Buchanans. Myrtle Wilson and George Wilson were the ones that live in the Valley of Ashes, and Myrtle was Tom's mistress. Yeah, as I said before. Yeah, well, afterwards I'm gonna mention some things, but now Mauro will talk about the aspects of the book that are analyzed.
Okay, thank you, Katarina. Now that we've reviewed like the characters from the plot, we're going to continue with the themes. So the primary themes that we found are the decline of the American dream in the 1920s. So as Martin was saying before, the American dream, in very few words, is this big idea that you can thrive in society or you can develop because of the freedom that you have, maybe in terms of economically talking, let's say, or in terms of in the professional life, maybe in any type of situation. But that is the American dream. So in this sense, the American dream encompasses like social values. That means that the American dream is an end towards happiness. But in the context of the movie and the book, the social and moral values are decline because of this opulence and because of these parties that are thrown at Gatsby's house. So there is a lot of greed, a lot of money spent on just pleasure, cynicism, corruption, and in very few words, the American dream turns into a much darker theme in the movie and the book also. Now we have to understand that in the 1920s, stock markets rose, so there was a lot of people consumed a lot of things. They were luxury and stuff that they did not need, essentially. So as I was saying, there was a lot of greed and this implied a decline in social and moral values. Now the other theme that is presented is the hollowness of the upper class. So in this sense, there was a difference between the people that were rich because of their family and the people that were self-made or were newly rich. So the aristocracy, who were the people that already had money, looked down on the newly rich people. So there was this sort of battle or confrontation. Yeah, could you change the slide, please? Okay, so very briefly, the motives are literary devices or anything that can help the reader or the audience understand the themes. So, for example, geography, there are shown many locations, and the scenery is very distinctive from each other. Like each place has different elements that can make you different and understand. For example, East Egg is where people from the aristocracy lived, and West Egg where the newly rich lived, for example. Now, in terms of the weather, this is a motive in the story because, for example, when there's a very critical scene, like a fight, let's say, the weather matches like the situation. For example, when Gatsby and Daisy gathered, it was very sad and melancholic, so it started raining. So the weather matched like the emotions of the characters. And others are like, for example, cars, cheating, and parties. Parties basically reflected this opulence in society. So yes, could you change, please? Okay, so for the tone, in a few words, the two tones that we found are scorn and sympathy mixed with melancholy. So the person who narrates this story is Nick, and it is very melancholic. And in the first place, let's say in the beginning of the story, because um, he relates like Gatsby's dreams and what he wishes, what he desires, and that there is this love, uh, pursue for love, for Daisy's love. So it's very melancholic. And then scornful, is when, for example, people look down on others, or this sort of battles of egos and identities, for example, reflected in the aristocracy and the newly rich, for example. So basically, yeah, it's melancholic tone throughout the whole plot. Could you change the slide? Now, as I was saying before, the person who narrates this story is Nick, so it's in first person. And for example, he he narrates everything, every situation that happens in the story, but he does not know the characters' thoughts or what they feel actually. So for example, he narrates when Gatsby and Daisy meet, for example, and even though he doesn't know their thoughts, the characters' thoughts, at one point he actually knows Gatsby's thoughts, and he starts to tell the audience, the readers, that Gatsby had certain dreams, that he was feeling very low because of Daisy. But this is because um, Gatsby told Nick what he was feeling. So that's why, even though it's a first narration person, he could tell what Gatsby was feeling because he told him. And yeah, also as I think another person told this in another presentation, but when you have a first person narrator, you usually question the reliability, because every detail that is told is according to his perception. So sometimes emotions are, I mean, perceptions are based on emotions or thoughts. In this case, Nick, maybe. So it could be biased. Okay. All right. And now in terms of the symbols, there are many symbols in this story, but primarily the green light is, let's say, an iconic symbol of this movie, and it represents the American dream in in essence. So it represents this desire to go beyond the problems and see through the darkness and reach the light. In this case, happiness or love and the American dream, basically. Maybe in this case, it could be represented as Daisy's love, which Gatsby desired so much. Okay. And now we have the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eichelberg, and there are many interpretations of this symbol, but one of the characters in the plot says that these eyes represent God, God looking on people. So, and this symbol is shown throughout the whole story. It appears many times, and it represents how God views people and how people attach meaning to things. So, so that would be it. So these eyes are looking at all the conflicts that happened throughout the story. And the Valley of Ashes, well, as you can see, it's a very gray setting, and it basically represents like the moral decay of society and the conditions in which the lower class lived. So it's a place with fire, with dust, etc. Yes. Well, in terms of the figures of speech, we didn't want to include like very specific ones because as it is a book, there are too many. So we focus on, for example, a religious allusion. In one point of the story, there is a character that says um, this about Gatsby. He had intended to take what he could and go, but now he found that he committed himself to following a grail. So the grail, as you know, is this very particular and famous element in that Jesus took. And there have been many quests throughout history in real life, and it has been impossible to reach and to find the Grail. So um, this phrase or quote is relates to Gatsby's desire for his dreams. So yeah, it's following a Grail because he hasn't been able to find it. Hasn't been able to find it. And there's also an historical element about Platonic conception of himself, because Gatsby had an idea that he wanted to reach his goals, to get money, to be happy, to reach Daisy's love. But these ideas are Platonic because Plato said that actually ideas are what people think, or the meaning that people attach to things. So that was a Platonic idea because he actually had his own view of his dreams and his life. So, yes.
Sorry, may I add something?
Sure.
Another religious solution was this eyes, because it was like the God looking at uh, everyone's behavior and what they do. Just that. Now we wanted to share these questions to start a discussion, but I don't know if anybody has a comment about our presentation. I mean, about the book or the movie, if you have watched it, or what do you think? I mean, would you watch it? Would you read it? Okay, if um, there is no comments about that, maybe we could go through the questions, Mauro or Martin.
Okay. Yeah. So we have 3 questions for the audience. So I guess instead of giving you a question, maybe you can choose one, the one that best interests you. So we have one, for example, about the point of the author, another one about um, Daisy's daughter, and another one about American Dream. So feel free to choose any and give us your comments.
I'm gonna add something. Yeah, in the second question, there is a quote that was written in the book about Daisy's perception of her daughter's birth, but actually it was something that the author's wife said in real life. Am I
Yeah.
right, Mike?
Yes, right after Zelda, Fitzgerald's wife, gave birth to their only daughter, she said exactly well, not, I don't know if the same words, but it is said that is the same quote. It was used for the novel.
I would like to answer question number two.
Right?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Maybe this is related to what you told us about how society was in those ages. Maybe it is good for her little girl, to be a fool in a cruel society. Maybe it is better to be ignorant than know the truth about the awful things in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I I think so. Yeah. I like that viewpoint because it relates to like maybe innocence somehow because so
Yes.
many bad things are happening. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely agree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody if you have something else to say or if anybody wants to say anything else.
Yes, yes. In number three, the how it is the concept of the American dream portrayed in The Great Gatsby. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. The Nick was the narrator, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I read the first half like a year ago, so I don't remember well. But he was invited by Gatsby, right, to be in his parties and everything, right?
Yes.
Okay, so here the concept of American Dream is because Nick is not, um, we could say it's like a medium class. Is not from the upper class, right? Or
Right.
is it the upper class?
He was a member of the working class.
Ah, okay. So that's the concept of American Dream, like achieving or gaining wealth, but from a accessible point. For example, being in a working class instead of being someone from the lower class, or being in a situation that maybe you never expected to have wealth. For example, I can compare it with Sister Carrie, which the main character was from a rural area, and she moved to a big city. But here you already started having connections with the upper class. So I think that's the concept of the American Dream, which is different from another book. And I think that there's no any other idea of American Dream. I mean, of a blank dream in another world, because I think all of us have heard the American Dream and we never heard about the European Dream. It's more like a cultural thing. So that's my comment.
Nice. I am going to take what you said to add my own analysis that I was discussing with my group beforehand. Is that, well, for me, one of the main themes of this book is the class mobility. Uh, and it's also really closely tied to the author's life because he was I don't know if you remember, but I said that he was a son of immigrants and hardworking. He had really hardworking parents, and he fell in love with two ladies from the socialite or upper class. So in this sense, I feel, this is my personal opinion, that Fitzgerald has a kind of inferiority complex because he was exposed to a kind of world or a kind of life of society that he didn't belong to. So I don't know. Maybe I feel myself kind of reflected in this, uh, in the sense that I also went to. I had access to private education, like Fitzgerald, who went to university in the 1920s, where when it was not so common, and he was exposed to people from different kind of social backgrounds, and he kind of fell in love or infatuated with the luxuries of the upper class. In this sense, I think that he really had a kind of class struggle because he felt that he was out of place where he belonged. So he really wanted to be part of this world.
May I add something, or we will stop the conversation right away?
Well, if Mr. Bruno doesn't say anything, just
Okay.
comment.
Yeah, I want to point out that this class mobility, I think it reflects on the fact that even though you try hard, even though you get a lot of money and independently the way you obtain it, but the thing is that you will never be part of the upper class, this all money group that had the power and the money since ever. Um, so that's it. I mean, we even though we try hard, we won't reach that a space in that group, in that elite.
Does anybody have any other comment?
Just to finalize, my idea is that really the socialite or upper circles are very closed, and they are not willing to let anybody take part of their privileges, as or dear president's wife some told some months ago that they had to share their privileges. Of course, they want.
I was very interested in the conversation, particularly in the arguments developed by you in terms of the social mobility, and that's why I thought about uh, question number 4. I posted in the chat room. Could have this literary work been written in a different time period? So, in case you can make a connection between the socioeconomic context portrayed in this story and the current one that we have in our own country. Now, there are other questions that are connected with perceptions that you might have about the main character, particularly in question number 3. Also, number 6, in terms of how do you understand this relationship? How do you judge it? Okay, what do you consider to be valuable about this type of relationship, which I have my personal opinion on, and I think everyone should. And question number 2, are you familiar with the word flappers?
I know that Zelda Fitzgerald, the wife of the author, was called the first flapper, but I don't. Honestly, I didn't do my research about on the concept.
Okay, good. So to answer that question, you will have to do a little bit of research, but it's not hard to find. So after you find the meaning of the word flappers, imagine the story. What if it would have been written from, a more relevant role of the flappers would have been different. I'm sure.
Ah,
Mhm.
yes, I know. These are like the jazz ladies, the the ones with the short. I mean, the dress with the skirt up to the knee, and their hair is on the arranged
The
in a certain manner.
Yeah, yeah, but go beyond the image, all right? Beyond the image, explore the type of personality developed by them, the what connects them, and also see if you can go beyond what they looked with probably what they thought that would
What
have
I think, just
Mhm.
connecting ideas, I think that what they did was challenge the norm in that time. So they, I mean, I don't think that they were socially accepted at first because they were different and they were challenging what was normal. Like I talked about the role of women in those ages. So this is when women could start to vote and study and work. So I think that it's related to that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you got your point there. Now, considering is I'm about to start another class in 3 minutes, so I'm really sorry for interrupting the book report in terms of elaborating more on some of the questions that you all posted in your presentation. But I invite you to choose one of the questions in the image that it's in the chat room, a different one for Catalina, Mauricio and you, Martin. And please record your answer and send it to me today to the institutional email address.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Catalina?
It's okay. Sorry, I couldn't put my unmute yourself.
That's right. So make sure that you choose a different one, okay? A different question. And I'm going to post the answers in the LMS if you don't mind. Considering that everyone should be, you know, uh, eligible to hear and ponder later about the answers and make his or her own reflections. So if you don't mind, I'm going to post them later in the LMS. Okay. So
Right.
any comments? We finished the session.
No, thank you so much for staying until this late.
Absolutely, I do agree with you. It's interesting characters, Santiago and Jay. Interesting characters in terms of you know the American dream, whether it's fulfilled or not, but still they are striving to achieve something so courageously, and eventually we may see that sometimes the American dream can be so elusive, it might be already dead. I mean, that's totally up to you. But at some point, we talked about a Chilean dream for immigrants, if you remember, like the American dream in Chile for immigrants who were arriving from different countries, and now already dead, I think. All right,
That worked
guys.
out so well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, guys. Remember there's only one question in the forum. Number 4, we're closing the forum. I think the last of the forums in. I'm not sure, but I think it's June the 28th. Maybe we can extend the time, considering that there's only one more for the following week, probably June the 5th. Okay, so I'll take a look at that.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you for staying, as Martin said, so long. See you later. Goodbye.
Bye
Bye,
Bye
bye.
bye.
Professor.